We don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know, Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, fury as the government U-turns on a promised bonfire of EU laws and a blatant betrayal of Brexit that's left Rishi Sunak's reputation in tatters. And as terrified Red Wall MPs tell him to buck up, I'll explain why this embattled PM must start to prove he has what it takes to defeat the coalition from hell or face the axe in my digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh in, and tonight I'm joined by Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. Also coming up, with The Sun revealing a major rift between ITV's star-presenting duo, would Holly be better off presenting This Morning without scandal-ridden Philip? Charlie Lawson, Kim Woodburn and Jonathan Shalit battle it out on That in the Clash, and I'll also reveal some explosive exclusive info on Holly's bid to break free of Scove 2, so stay tuned for that. Then Calvin McKenzie delivers his unfiltered verdict on the multiple crises engulfing woke ITV as the backlash from the terribly white balcony comment on Coronation Day continues. Elsewhere tonight, as Prince Harry blames the press, who else, for his split from Chelsea Davy, could dredging up memories of the one that got away put pressure on his marriage to Meghan? My royal masterminds have very strong views on this. Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier weigh in soon. The SNP horror show motors on as it's revealed the purchase of this £110,000 camper van seized by cops from the home of Nicola Sturgeon's mother-in-law was hidden from the party treasurer. The Minister of the moment, Penny Mordaunt, hit out at the party's dire mishandling of Scottish finances today.
Perhaps now they could turn their attention to their dire mishandling of Scottish finances.
And with reports the SNP tried to oust their nosy treasurer from the party, can the SNP call its vicious civil war and recover before the next election? That's our big debate. Tonight, also on the way, is the Archbishop of Canterbury wrong to wade into the small boats row when the most inhumane thing, I think, is letting the people smuggling gangs thrive? Well, former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe, she's a God-fearing woman and she's going to explain why Woke Welby is the ungodly one later this hour. As ever, do stay tuned for tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press, and we're crowning a new Greatest Britain Union Jackass 2. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. So you are watching GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't know what's going on tonight because we usually have our little sting, and that's where I'm going to move very shortly. But let's go to the news now with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. And the top story tonight, the Chancellor says the Bank of England's latest interest rate rise will prove challenging for families with mortgages. His comments come after the UK's central bank raised rates for the 12th time in a row in a further attempt to tackle soaring inflation. The bank's base rate has increased by 0.25 percentage point from 4.25 to 4.5%. That's the highest level in 15 years. And Jeremy Hunt says the measures will help families in the long run.
Although it's obviously good news the bank is not now predicting a recession this year, it's very challenging for families with mortgages to see interest rates go up. But unless we tackle rising prices, the cost of living crisis will just continue. And that's why it is essential we stick to our plan to halve inflation. And if we do that, we can bring certainty back to family finances.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, agreed the rise will be of concern to many British households.
Today will be a day of great anxiety for many families and businesses around the country who are facing the 12th increase in interest rates in just a matter of months. That means higher mortgage costs. Already, people have paid £1 billion more in mortgage repayments compared to where they would have been 6 months ago.
Now, in international news, the UK has confirmed it is supplying Ukraine with the long-range missiles it requested for its fight against Russia. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says the donation of the Storm Shadow missiles gives Ukraine the best chance to defend themselves. The decision follows Kyiv's repeated pleas for more weapons from the West. Addressing MPs earlier, Ben Wallace also said the United Nations had found evidence that Russia had committed war crimes. Now, in Pakistan, the Supreme Court has ordered the release of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, saying his arrest was illegal. Mr. Khan was arrested on Tuesday by paramilitary officers in riot gear in what looked like a courtroom setting. It sparked widespread protests right across the country, with more than 1,000 people arrested, forcing the government at one point to call in the army to help restore order. Now, here at home, rail services run by the operator TransPennine Express are to be brought under government control. The Transport Secretary has announced the decision follows continuous cancellations on the service. Mark Harper said the firm's contract will not be extended or renewed. The Department of Transport will instead take over the services from May the 28th. The train operator, which covers Northern England and runs in parts of Scotland, saw 1 in 6 services cancelled in the month of March. That's all from me. I'm back in an hour. Back to Dan.
So remember this campaign video? Look at this. What I'm about to show you was Rishi Sunak promising to shred EU laws during his first 100 days as PM from his first failed campaign to become PM. Do we have that video? Because I did want to show it. There we go. But now that he is in the top job via an anti-democratic parliamentary coup, ignoring Tory members, he's shredding his own future and perhaps that of the Conservative Party. Now, let me be very honest, Fishy Rishi is on course to be thumped at the next general election. Privately, senior Tories admit to me that under his leadership, there is little hope of staying in government. And today, that's just getting worse, with the decision to scrap the cast-iron promise of getting rid of thousands of EU laws at lightning speed to deliver on the Brexit dream. That terrible call has meant Brexiteers MPs have even started a conversation about delivering letters of no confidence in Sunak to 1922 Chair Graham Brady. Meanwhile, the Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch's own ambitions of replacing Sunak also seem to have been shredded, with this snaky decision to roll back the bonfire of European laws and then sneak the announcement out via a newspaper. That's seen her hauled over the coals today by the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle.
I'm very sorry that the sequencing that we chose was not to your satisfaction. I was...
Order! That is totally not acceptable. Who do you think you're speaking to, Secretary of State? I think we need to understand each other. I am the defender of this House and these benches on both sides. I am not going to be spoken to by a Secretary of State who is absolutely not accepting my ruling. Take it with good grace and accept it, that members should hear it first, not a WMS or what you decide.
The fury today, though, doesn't just end with Lindsay Hoyle and with the Brexiteers. 10 terrified Red Wall MPs have written to the Prime Minister, demanding he pull his finger out by summer on the government's levelling up pledge or face an election hammering. So Rishi's rebellions now come from furious Tory MPs over Brexit, levelling up, housing reforms and the failure to stop the boats. Oh, what might have been if they had just left Boris Johnson in post, respecting the democracy of both the country and the party, as I insisted they should at the time. Instead, they gave in to the psychotic Sue Gray-led Partygate witch hunt, as former Boris Comms chief Gito Harry has outlined in his bombshell new podcast released today.
Conservative MPs, in his words, had become psychotic. The police were trawling all over Partygate, and an inquiry led by a, until then at least, obscure civil servant called Sue Gray, now a household name, of course, and a hero of the left, was planning what he described then as an orgy of pain, abuse and humiliation.
Well, Boris's sense of injustice has been amplified tonight with breaking revelations from Sly News that the wicked witch hunters of Westminster, Sue Gray and Harriet Harman, had personal contact in the early stages of the Privileges Committee inquiry into Partygate, the very committee Labour wokester Harman chairs. So it's time for there to be democracy and conservatism brought back into the Conservative Party. Or what on earth is the alternative being offered against Labour at the next election? So that's why I'm going to be attending the first Conservative Democratic Organisation conference in Bournemouth on Saturday, alongside true Tories like my colleague JRM, Nadine Dorries and Priti Patel, and I'll show you what happens there on Monday's programme. But we can't sit back and let the country be taken hold of by a socialist coalition from hell, led by Slippery Starmer and supported by the Corbynites, Scottish separatists, Greens and Brexit-reversing Lib Dems. So this is actually not just a fight for the soul of the Conservative Party, it's a fight for the soul of the country. And to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, the former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. So, Alison, look, the chickens are coming home to roost for Sunak, aren't they? For a long time, he got away with all of this because he's the media darling.
Yeah, I think it's not chickens, it's buzzards, isn't it, coming to roost? Entire flock of vultures are coming in. It's a bad day, isn't it? They try to sneak it out, they try to bring it in the bins around the back, really. As I know from my Telegraph readers, there's massive disillusion amongst the base. I mean, it's terrible, Dan. They don't just want them to lose, they actually want them to be destroyed. I mean, I get emails on a daily basis saying that. So getting rid of these EU regulations, that was keeping faith with the people who gave Boris that 80-seat majority, wasn't it? And as you said, Rishi used that as part of his leadership campaign. Don't worry, I'm a keen Brexiteer and so on. You're safe with me. And this thing today, it just looks like rowing back. But I think we're also coming back to this thing we've talked about before of the Whitehall blob.
Yes.
Resisting. So Kemi Badenoch as good as said, these people don't really want to scrap these regulations, do they? So they're doing it very, very slowly in their 2 days a week working from home from the Peloton bike.
And by the time Labour's in, they'll say, oh, we like all of these laws, let's just leave them alone.
I think if they're left in place, they may suddenly be, brought back to life the minute that Starmer's in. But I don't think, I've gotten very little faith in Rishi Sunak. I think Boris, whatever his faults, was immensely charismatic. He was able to hold together the red wall and the blue Tory heartlands, an amazing juggling trick in retrospect. And I think Sunak is a managerial technocrat. He hasn't got the guts, he hasn't got the passion. And all we're getting at the moment is gimmicks about pharmacists and God knows what. So it's, it's not a kind of it's not a meaty performance. He really needs now to, he's fighting for his life, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's tinking around the edges, though, policy-wise.
Yeah.
Sean Bailey, can we talk about this revelation tonight about Harriet Harman and Sue Gray? Because this is really concerning. I have described this Privileges Committee as a kangaroo court. Partygate was very clearly a psychotic witch hunt that, unfortunately, Tory backbenchers brought into. What are we meant to believe about this revelation? Because Harman, when Boris was giving evidence, made it absolutely clear that Sue Gray was about to become the Labour Chief of Staff, and so as a result, they weren't going to listen to a thing that she had to say. Now we learn that they're secretly meeting as part of this investigation. I think it looks crooked and corrupt, Sean.
Crooked and corrupt doesn't begin to describe what it is. What it really is taking the British people as fools. It's saying, actually, we'll say one thing to you, we'll mount our high horse, we'll flog Boris, orgy of pain, as Boris named it, but in the background, we'll break all the rules ourselves. All that moral high ground, we'll hide underneath it. And I think, actually, the public now are seeing it for what it actually was. So all these snide comments made by anybody from Nicola Sturgeon to Labour activists on the doorstep are simply not true. We cannot believe them because of all the collusion going on in the background.
Scheming Sturgeon was so worried about a piece of cake. Look at what was going on in your own party, love.
Exactly.
I mean, Amy Nicole, this is a stitch-up, isn't it, by these wicked witch hunters of Westminster, Sue Gray and Harriet Harman.
I think it's so desperate that you're scrabbling around that you have to call it a witch hunt. It was just an impartial, fact-led
Oh my gosh.
inquiry.
Oh my gosh.
If you...
Oh my gosh.
She's about to become Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff.
You could have used any word other than impartial, and we could have done the least
impartial investigation I've ever seen.
It might be a surprise to Tories like yourself,
It is.
Sean, but some people can work with impartiality and integrity in one role and then move to another.
Going to work for the leader of the Labour Party.
Integrity would have been, there is thousands of civil servants who are capable of doing that. She could have just said, no, thank you, pick someone else. What she did was put herself in a position of power over the PM to help her new boss.
Who appointed Sue Gray?
The civil service.
Boris Johnson appointed.
No, but she should have said no.
No, it was meant to be Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, who had to recuse himself because of his involvement in the parties. But at the end of the day, Amy, she was appointed
by Boris
on the
Johnson.
clear understanding that she was a senior and trusted civil servant.
Which
Not
she
someone
was.
who
No,
was
she
going
wasn't.
to rush
She was
off
senior.
and
She
become
wasn't trusted.
the boss of the Labour Party.
Do you know the real pain? The pain is that ordinary civil servants who are sitting at home now who do operate with integrity. She has put them in disrepute.
I think if you go and level this type of accusations at these inquiries, then you need to do that at all inquiries and have these suspicions about all the different inquiries going on, which you can't do. And also, it's bringing the committees into disrepute.
But Harriet Harman is
who
the chair.
Who else was on the committee with Harriet Harman?
It doesn't matter. She's the chair. Do you not understand? She is the one who directs the direction of that committee.
And by the way, she had already proclaimed Boris Johnson guilty on Twitter before she was even appointed.
Now we know why.
But look, there is a question that no one in the mainstream media wants you to ask. But Alison, I think it is becoming more pertinent now. Do the Tories have to genuinely consider the BBB, the nuclear option, bringing back Boris before the next election?
I just think we're running out of time, Dan. I'm coming over to your point of view. Who would have believed it? I do think now jettisoning him with what we've got, I mean, it's looking pretty pathetic. There was some survey saying that Rishi Sunak's the most popular leader ever in the world. And I thought, out of a focus group of what, two?
Rishi Sunak's best friend.
Both of Rishi Sunak's parents voted in that one. I mean, sadly, I think it's too late. And I think it just does need some oomph. And God knows where they're going to get it from, quite honestly. I think
Sean,
the key thing that
Can Boris come back before the next election?
Look, all things are possible, but Tories will sit down and will think, do we actually want to go through that disruption again? That's a decision for Boris and Rishi to have a look at. But what Rishi's got to do is remember the key tenet of controlling the Conservative Party, doing as you've said. There's people in the party who are big supporters, people who are not supporters, but what they will do is get behind him if he delivers, and that's his challenge now. And if he doesn't deliver, then he'll hear the spectre of Boris. Boris remains hugely popular, not just in the party, but also outside the party, and Rishi needs to outperform that feeling, because if he doesn't, he could have a Boris-shaped problem.
OK. Sean Bailey, Amy Nicole, Alison Pearson, my superstar panel, are with me all night. But coming up, as Prince Harry blames the British press for his split from Chelsea Davy, was she the love of his life that got away? And will these revelations in the court case start putting pressure onto his marriage to Meghan Markle? My royal masterminds have some real insight on this. It's going to be fascinating to hear from Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier very soon. But up next, in The Clash, as The Sun reveals a major rift between the pair, would Holly Willoughby be better off presenting This Morning without scandal hit Philip Schofield? Ex-Corrie actor and Man of the People Charlie Lawson, British talent manager Professor Jonathan Shallett, and TV firebrand Kim Woodburn. Well, she has her own personal beef with Scove, doesn't she? I'm going to do battle in The Clash next, but what do you think? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll on Twitter @GBNews. The Clash, straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, join me imminently. But first, The Clash. And the major rift between TV power duo Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield has been laid bare today with a series of bombshell revelations that have rocked ITV to its core. The once untouchable pair are now barely speaking after Holly's sensible realisation that continued loyalty to a scandal-ridden Scove is putting her own glittering career at risk. And they couldn't have looked more awkward when hitting screens for the latest episode of This Morning.
Morning and welcome to your Thursday This Morning with 3 other
I didn't
countries.
know that.
How was that a thing?
I don't know how that was the whole of Europe, an exact voting made 3 people. Spain, the Netherlands and France.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a little Eurovision fact. 14.
Can't believe that.
Feels old, doesn't it?
Can't believe that.
It doesn't anyway. I love you there.
Now, Holly and Phil's 14-year partnership took its latest battering most recently when Schofield's paedophile brother was convicted for sexually abusing a teenage boy. And in a further blow to Phil, today's front page of The Sun revealed Holly and Philip are barely speaking off-screen, with insiders saying she is ready to do the show without him. I've revealed more on this in an exclusive column for the Mail Online today, with a source close to Holly telling me the fallout with Philip has been going on for quite some time. For Holly, there's also a degree of her becoming concerned that some of the scandals connected to Philip are damaging her reputation. So tonight, I'm asking, would Holly Willoughby be better off presenting This Morning without the scandal hit Philip Schofield? Dan at gbnews.uk is my email. Vote in our poll at gbnews. But doing battle on this, 3 giants of the entertainment industry. Our man of the people, Coronation Street legend Charlie Lawson, top British talent manager Professor Jonathan Shalit, and the TV personality. She was once known as the Queen of Clean. She has had her own run-ins with Philip Schofield in the past, but then again, so have I. Kim Woodburn, welcome all. So, Jonathan Shalit, you obviously represent some of the biggest names on ITV, and despite the fact that Holly doesn't want to keep working with Philip, you say that this combination is a good thing for ITV.
Well, you're quoting some of what I said, Dan. First of all, your introduction was completely nuanced in the direction that you wanted to take this story. So I applaud you for having the honesty of saying you had a fallout with Mr. Schofield, hence why you've taken this position. The truth is, This Morning is bigger than any individual presenter. It is one of the most successful formats on British television, and ITV have, and by the way, ITV have not been rocked by this at all. This Morning remains a very strong brand. It gets very strong viewers consistently, irrespective of those presenting it. And yes, on different days, you get different levels of viewership, but the consistent factor is This Morning gets great viewers. Would Holly be better presenting it without Philip? She has presented shows without Philip, so clearly yes. But equally, you could say, would Philip be better presenting without Holly? The answer is he has presented shows without Holly, so yes. They are 2 really good presenters. The clip you showed of them today, having a massive rift on television, I just don't think that's true. I think it was a good clip of another good show today.
Well, I can tell you, Jonathan, I've been reporting on this story since 2019, and things are not good between Holly and Philip. She wants to go it alone. ITV's going to have to make a choice. I just want to pick you up on one thing. Yes, I have had my own personal beef with Philip. In fact, I worked at ITV Daytime for 10 years. The bloke tried to get me sacked multiple times. That's nothing to do with my reporting on this story. I've spoken to 8 household names at ITV who tell me that the backstage tensions on This Morning are toxic. And the thing is, Charlie Lawson, I think viewers have now realised, actually, that Philip Schofield isn't a particularly nice guy. He treated Amanda Holden terribly. He treated Fern Britton terribly. He treated Ruth Langsford terribly. The viewers, Charlie, have picked up on this. So why do ITV stick by this guy when Holly doesn't want him anymore?
Well, I think probably behind the scenes, ITV are aware of exactly what is going on. They're not bloody stupid, and they will be working out what they're going to do. And as soon as it affects their viewers or anything else, they will push before anybody is shoved. It's as simple as that. I mean, look, I don't watch the show, but Eamon Holmes would tend to be a very, very close friend of mine. Well, he is a very, very close friend of mine. So I've been aware for a good period of time that there has been difficulties. I mean, and that's what happens. These people get very pampered, they get very big, and they think they rule the bloody world. I mean, so there's a bit of shit hits the fan. I have to say, they get off terribly luckily, because us actors, and maybe Kim would know the same thing, that we get dumped upon every week, and through the 90s and what have you in the 2000s. So if he's getting a bit of a rough ride, then he'll have to batten down the hatches. But Look, I don't really know whether Holly would be better off her own or not, because I've had no real experience. Philip's always been nice to me, but I am aware of what goes on backstage, as you've said. And I think it's probably common knowledge. I think Kim probably knows only too well.
I think it's time to bring Kim Woodburn in, because you do know how nasty Philip Schofield can be, Kim.
I've had so many run-ins. He is an obnoxious, horrible man, and I don't know why he's still on television. I went on his show and he insulted me. He was rude. He was horrible. He was laughing at me. He was absolutely sniggering at me. Also, when I couldn't get in to see my friend skating recently. He said, "Would you come on that night?" I said, "Certainly I will." And then it turned out that Philip did not want me on the show because he would go among the audience and chat. And if I was on the front row, he thought I might say something to him. I wouldn't. It was my friend's show. But that's how hard it's got. And that's how powerful he is. And he should not be on television. He's a cruel, brutal little man. And he's full of himself. On the subject of Holly, I'll be brief. Holly has aided and abetted him all these years. Now, she sits on that sofa. She knows he comes out with things that are extremely unkind and nasty and uncalled for. Does she say, "Excuse me, Phil, I don't agree with you"? No, she sits going, "Oh, Philip, Philip." She has no point of view. Why is she on the show?
He's been interrupting her a lot lately, Kim. I mean, I think that's one of the problems. She feels quite dominated by him.
But if she's put on a show, a top show like this, where she's earning shed loads of money, the creme de la creme show, you should choose someone who has something to say. And Holly seems a sweet little woman, and that's it. She's seen him being rude to people. I've seen people very sad on that show. Holly, who she's the presenter with him. We want to hear from her. We want her to say occasionally, "Philip, I don't agree with what you're saying at all." She has never once said it. They've been together for years.
Okay.
She is not fit to be a presenter.
Okay.
She has no point of view.
OK, well, look, personally, I think Holly is a good presenter. But Jonathan, can we go back to what Kim has said about Philip? She says, actually, he's so nasty, so toxic, that he doesn't deserve to be on TV, Jonathan.
Well, first of all, everyone's entitled to their personal opinions about people. My personal experience of Philip Schofield, and he's not a friend, he's not a client, so I can be objective. Whenever I've seen him at events, he's been polite and charming, and when people come up to him, he's equally polite.
That's not what I've ever seen, to be honest.
Dan, I'm totally aware of what different people think. However, the conversation is about, do the viewers of This Morning want to watch Philip and Holly? The answer is, at the moment, they do. You can be rest assured, I think, of one of your contributors just said, the people that run ITV Daytime in This Morning, if any presenter wasn't right for the programme, they would go. And the same would apply to both Philip and Holly.
But Charlie, isn't the issue with Philip, he has wielded so much power at ITV. I mean, you talk about Eamon Holmes. Look, I adore Eamon Holmes. He's a colleague here at GB News. But the way that Philip used him was despicable. You know, used him to do his TV coming out and then demanded that the bosses get rid of him. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, you're wrong. That's not how ITV works. There are important bosses of ITV.
OK, Jonathan, we'll let Charlie come in.
Sorry, Jonathan, son. Well, between you and me, it wasn't a surprise when he came out at all to half of us in the business. But anyway, that's another story. But I have to tell you that Eamon has been around in broadcasting a very, very long time. And Eamon is a gentleman, and offset Eamon can be as tough as you like. Believe you me, I know him in Civvy Street, and I know he was very angry about the whole thing. And I wouldn't be going for a beer with him, Philip. Let me tell you that, because Eamon's a good friend of mine, and I know he was very hurt by the whole affair.
Kim Woodburn, what are you expecting to happen here? Because this is fascinating now. You've got Holly saying she doesn't want to work with Philip. Philip saying, no. You've got to keep working with me.
Well, one, she hasn't got to keep working with anybody. Let us make it quite clear. She earns shes loads of money. She's extremely wealthy. If she found it unbearable, you simply give your notice in. When you made enough money, what is she? What she must be loved being punished by him then. And I mean, she one time he was her idol, wasn't he? I mean, all over him, like it was embarrassing. And as I say, she's allowed Philip Schofield to have carte blanche for years. He talks, she sits there going, oh Philip. So and to say they're the most popular couple, I'm going to tell you something. I speak to a lot of people. The curiosity, you want to see, is it just me? And I told a lot of people, all ages, what do you think when they go, those two, they need to go? So I don't know what you say. I think if you've got a good couple on there that would backbite each other and be honest with each other, and, I think you do more viewers than you've got. I think you do many more. The thing is, they can't seem to find anybody.
OK. Fascinating debate. Kim Woodburn, Jonathan Shalit, Charlie Lawson, thank you so much. But who do you agree with? Would Holly be better presenting this morning without Philip? Sean on Twitter writes, Schofield has passed it now and has been unapologetic since the Q-Gate scandal. Holly would be better off without him. From Morton, I think the fabulous Alison Hammond would do an excellent job as a permanent co-host. I have no idea where ITV continue to shelter the scandal-ridden Schofield. And Francis writes, get rid of both of them and give younger broadcasters a chance, which will also save ITV a great deal of money. Your verdict is now at, whoa, this is huge. 94% of you say Holly's completely right to want to walk away from Philip. Just 6% of you think that she should stay with the Long Time This Morning presenter. That is an overwhelming result. Coming up, is the Archbishop of Canterbury wrong to wade into the Stop the Boats row when the most inhumane thing is actually letting people smuggling gangs thrive? Political firebrand, former Tory minister Anne Widdecombe weighs in. But next, as Prince Harry blames the British press for his split from Chelsea Davy, will these courtroom bombshells about his past love put pressure on his marriage to Meghan Markle? My royal masterminds, they know a lot about this. Lady Colin Campbell, Phil Dampier, big royal revelations straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
PM on.
Time now for our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier. And the litigious Prince Harry has decided to celebrate his father's recent coronation by launching legal action against Mirror Group newspapers over historic accusations of phone hacking. The court case, which will include a personal appearance from Harry next month, is expected to last 6 weeks. But just one day after the court started its hearing, documents are already proving revealing. According to his lawyer, Harry believes he lost his long-term ex-girlfriend Chelsea Davy due to unlawful press intrusion, with documents disclosing ultimately MGN's activities led Ms Davy to make the decision that a royal life was not for her. After years of dating, Britain was braced for an engagement announcement before the couple separated in 2010. And these latest revelations surely beg the question, was Chelsea Davy actually the true love of Prince Harry's life, his one who got away? So, Phil Dampier, you believe that, don't you? So how on earth will his wife Meghan feel about these courtroom bombshells?
Yeah, good evening, Dan. I truly believe that Chelsea was the great love of his life. I think they were ideally suited. They had a shared sense of humour. He was never happier than when he was in Africa with her, in South Africa or Botswana, on one of their many jaunts there. You know, she was the one that got away, I think. There's no doubt about it. So I don't think the phone hacking helped. But I don't think that was the reason that they split up. I just don't think that she wanted a royal life. I don't think Cressida Bonus wanted a royal life. They weren't cut out to be princesses. They made it last as long as they could, Chelsea and Harry, but it was never going to end up with a royal marriage. So I don't think it's going to affect the relationship with Meghan particularly. I mean, after all, she was married before, so you know, they've both got a track record before them. I don't think that's going to affect them. But there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been much happier with Chelsea Davy, and of course we would have all been a lot happier as well, because he wouldn't have never met Meghan, and we wouldn't be where we are now, would we?
Yeah, and Chelsea would have been a lovely, respectable wife. Lady C, you've got to admit though, this is strange. Like, Meghan, for all of her faults, she's not constantly harping on about her ex-husband. She wants to erase him from history, which is actually the ordinary thing to do. Harry seems to want to talk about Chelsea Davy all the time, including in this court case.
Well, yes, of course, because you see, Harry's perpetually disaffected, and Harry also needs an excuse for why he is a failure and why his whole life has unravelled. But my understanding is that Chelsea Davy actually, not only did she not want a royal life, but ultimately she didn't want a life with Harry. And that is the decisive factor. And Harry he can't face the fact that it's not the papers that broke up his relationship with Chelsea Davy. It's that he didn't cut the mustard for her for the long term. And that's what broke up the relationship. Of course, he's not going to...
But he always wants to blame someone else, Lady C, and usually, if it's not his own family, it's the media.
Well, it's always somebody else but himself.
Yeah.
But that goes along with an inadequate personality can never admit that he is to blame. He has to buck pass to everybody else. It's a classical sign of an inadequate personality.
Now, look, you may remember this former aide to both Prince William and Harry, and Meghan, actually, for a time, this guy called Jason Knauf, because he was accused of legal meddling in that calamitous couple's Netflix hit job back in January.
A senior member of the Duke of Cambridge's team came forward to give this witness statement, which wasn't required. And sadly, there's just no way he could have done that without the authority of his bosses.
But the accusations certainly haven't ruined the reputation of Mr Knauf, though. As just yesterday, he was made a Lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order after being named in last year's New Year's Honours list to recognise his services to the royal family. But Phil, what is so fascinating about this is this bloke, Jason Knauf, is the man who described Meghan Markle as a bully. And there you have Prince William presenting him with the highest honour that a royal can give to a member of their staff. This is really interesting, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, well, they always get gongs, don't they, people who work for the royals? I mean, the pay's very bad, but it looks good on your CV once you've done 5 years that you've worked at Buckingham Palace or you've worked at Kensington Palace. So that's the reason people do it, but the pay is absolutely terrible. So they give them gongs afterwards to make it a bit more worthwhile and possibly to make them shut up. I don't know Jason Knauf's ever thought about writing a book. I didn't like him very much. I didn't find him terribly helpful. But he was popular with Harry to start with. But of course, then when he noticed the allegations of bullying and how many of his staff were unhappy working for her, then of course he changed his mind and the whole dynamic changed. And of course, the big mystery is the investigation into the bullying, which of course has been mysteriously shelved.
Indeed, and Lady C, this is Prince William making a real point, isn't it? This is a huge. I'm trying to think of a polite term. A huge fridge you to Harry and Meghan, because they hate this bloke Knauf. They hate him because he's the one who blew the whistle on all of Meghan Markle's bullying.
Well, what's really happened in my view is that the royal family has decided, since by law they are not allowed to reveal the contents of the inquiry, because that would violate the privacy and the confidentiality of the participants of the inquiry, which is perfectly standard across any corporate body, which the royal family in this instance is included in. They have decided that by elevating him to the extent that they could have made him a member. They made him a lieutenant, which is tremendously senior. And it is really saying Meghan was a bully. And since we can't say it, and since we can't reveal the contents of the report, we are making the point that the person who revealed it is being honoured by us. It is a very elegant way of making the point.
Making the point. Indeed. A legal note, Lady C, because you know both sides of the story always here on GB News. Meghan has denied on multiple occasions bullying anyone. Elsewhere, the maiden...
So did Hitler.
Elsewhere, the Made in Chelsea star Millie McIntosh, moving swiftly along, may have more in common with the king than we just thought, because she has admitted too that she's been snubbed by Meghan Markle. This is during a fascinating podcast interview. Listen to this.
I took her to like my favourite spots, and she didn't know that many people, so I kind of connected her with loads of people from like best place to get your nails done, best, like my little black book. She told me about Harry and that they were messaging, and a friend had introduced them and they had been messaging. It all hit the press that Meghan and Harry were seeing each other. So I messaged her and just said like, hey, I hope you're okay. And she just sent me this really abrupt message. I never heard from her again. I felt like she'd kind of told me to just like off, basically. That message. My kind of instinct about why it happened at the time. You know, she's like, right, I'm going to be royal now. I don't need Millie in my life. I think I just wasn't useful anymore.
Lady C, that is the first time Millie McIntosh has spoken about her friendship with Meghan in public, and she's another one of those folk who was ghosted by Meghan. It says a lot, doesn't it, about the sort of person Meghan is?
Meghan is a classical opportunist who goes through life erasing everybody who she thinks is no longer convenient. And it's a really stupid way of functioning because you create enemies where there is no necessity to create enemies. It is just stupid. But this is the way she functions. And it shows that she is basically a very debased personality. Because if she wasn't, she wouldn't behave so commonly and vulgarly and in such an inelegant and really unethical manner.
Yeah, well, indeed, because no, you don't. You don't treat people like that because, Phil, look, Millie McIntosh has said nothing until now. It was almost like, oh, now that I'm going to be entering the royal family or I'm dating a member of the royal family, you're not good enough for me.
Well, I'm going to show my age and my ignorance, Dan. I don't know much about Millie McIntosh, but she mustn't be upset because, let's be honest, she's joining a very long list, isn't she? Her first husband, Trevor Emerson, he was cancelled. Her father's been cancelled. Her half-brother and sister have been cancelled. The royal family have been cancelled. Jessica Mulroney's been cancelled. It's a long, long list, so she mustn't be upset. And I think probably a few more are going to be added to it.
Our royal masterminds, fantastic as ever. Lady Colin Campbell, Phil Dampy. We will speak next week. But coming up, as it's revealed, Nicola Sturgeon's husband kept the party treasure in the dark over the famous, or shall I say infamous, purchase of that £110,000 camper van. Is the SNP embroiled in a vicious civil war? My superstar panel return to debate that soon. But next, is the Archbishop of Canterbury wrong to wade into the Stop the Boats row when the most inhumane thing is letting the people smuggling gangs thrive? Our political firebrand, she's a woman of faith, and Widdicombe is going to weigh in straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's newspaper front page is hot off the press shortly. But first, big witty style with former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe. And the Archbishop of Woke, Justin Welby, continues to stick his nose into politics after attacking the government's illegal migration bill and the crucial Rwanda deterrent in the House of Lords.
I urge the government to reconsider much of the bill, which fails to live up to our history, our moral responsibility and our political and international interests.
Reacting to Welby's virtue-signalling twaddle, the Daily Mail rightly asks on their front page today, what's so moral about not stopping people smugglers? Because to use the Archbishop's words, the ungodly thing to do, in my view, would be allowing these criminal gangs to flourish and continue risking people's lives on the Channel crossings. Surely, Anne Widdecombe, surely that's what's ungodly.
Well, indeed. And I would go further and I would say this to the Archbishop. If he's going to tell us what is ungodly, and if he's going to tell us that our legislation is opposed to the laws of God, then he's got to tell us what the laws of God require. You know, what is his solution to this problem? Is it just to let people keep coming, let them risk their lives on the seas, let them go on paying money to people smugglers, let them go on putting a strain on this country that we can't meet? Is that his solution, or has he got another one? Well, if he has, please tell us, because none of us know what it is.
No, because he doesn't have one. Look, Anne, as a God-fearing woman yourself, do you worry about the church becoming politicised with Welby wading in on an issue like this?
Well, the fact is the Church of England has been politicised for years. I mean, we all know that. It takes the Liberal line quite reliably every single time. And so there is no very great surprise in this. I do think it's right that the Church should occasionally speak out when it thinks government is doing something wrong. I mean, if you don't believe that, then, you know, the Church shouldn't be speaking out against some terrible regimes that we've had in history. Of course, they should. But they must be selective. And as I say, you know, they must say what we should do. It's no good just telling us what we shouldn't do. That's no good. And I actually don't think that God blesses the people smugglers. And I don't think he blesses people who put others at risk on the seas. I don't think he blesses any of that. And he doesn't bless the lies that a lot of them tell when they arrive here. And they've come from a perfectly safe country, which is France. And perhaps the Archbishop would like to lecture France on what it should be doing, because as far as I can see, it's doing absolutely nothing except quietly turning the other cheek. Well,
indeed.
You know,
No criticism of France, which is allowing the people smuggling gangs to thrive, which is not doing anything to actually stop these people getting into the boats in the first place. But of course, no, don't criticise France, just criticise our government that's actually doing something to try and stop the boats. I mean, I don't think they're doing enough, Anne, as you know. But it makes me really angry that people always equate stopping the boats with being inhumane. It is the reverse. The only humane thing to do is to stop the boats, because if you stop the boats, you smash the people smuggling rings and you save lives.
Well, you've just got to follow a logical line. And to say this, we know we cannot take every single person who wants to come here. We know that because half the world wants to come here. Therefore, we have to have rules. Therefore, we have to apply those rules. And to be fair, we've got to make sure that everybody is governed by the same rules. And therefore, people come here from a safe country, and if people come here without a real claim to asylum, they're just economic migrants, then according to those rules, they should be sent back or sent to Rwanda or sent to some safe third country, wherever it might be. That is the rule. What is wrong, Archbishop, with applying the rules fairly and consistently?
Very well said. Anne Widdecombe, I hope he's listening. I fear he's not. We will speak next week. Thank you, Woody. Now, coming up, as the Conservative Party launches its search to unseat the world's worst mayor, I'll be joined by the man who hopes he can be the man to end Sadiq Khan's ruinous reign over London. Boris Johnson's former advisor and London mayoral hopeful Samuel Kasumu joins me soon. But next, as it's revealed Nicola Sturgeon's husband kept the party treasurer in the dark over the purchase of that infamous £110,000 camper van, can the SNP recover before the next general election? Or is this party now just mired in sleaze? My superstar panel return to debate that in just a moment. Plus, we're going to have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press. Don't go anywhere because we're back in just 2 minutes' time.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, in an extraordinary new development, it transpires that the former SNP Treasurer Douglas Chapman did not know about the purchase of that £110,000 camper van with party cash, the same motorhome that has sat motionless outside scheming Sturgeon's mother-in-law's house for the last 2 years. And the plot thickens because, according to reports, the SNP hierarchy are now trying to oust Chapman from his role as an MP. So look, you're not going to get this story on the British Bashing Corporation, but you are going to get it here. Are the scandal-ridden separatists in a vicious civil war that will end their supremacy in Scotland? That's the big debate with my superstar panel next. And tonight, I'm joined by Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. After refusing to condemn Adjoa Ando's comments despite record complaints, I can reveal tonight that Woke ITV is facing a dramatic new crisis. There's a major rift between their star presenting duo Holly Willoughby and the scandal-plagued Philip Schofield. So after 14 years as the channel's golden couple, just why is Holly preparing to pull the plug on their partnership? I'm going to reveal the answer to that with lots of exclusive detail alongside Calvin McKenzie. Plus, we're going to hear from what Philip Schofield has to say about this. That's an uncancelled soon. Also on the way, after Harry and Meghan's constant mudslinging at the royal family, is radio legend Dame Jenny Murray right that the King should step down for William within just 6 years so that a younger, more vibrant sovereign can oversee the monarchy in the modern day? We'll tackle that one in the Media Buzz. Plus, Boris Johnson's former special advisor and the favourite to run against Sadiq Khan for London Mayor, Samuel Kasumu, explains why he's the man to bring order and prosperity to our once great capital. And finally, Donald Trump entered the Democrat lion's den last night on CNN and he came away without a scratch. But I'll show you very shortly, actually, what he had to say because it was hilarious. There'll also be a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the night is out. We'll have the first front pages arriving in mere moments too, right after the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you and good evening to you. The top story tonight. The Chancellor says the Bank of England's latest interest rate rise will prove challenging for families with mortgages. His comments came after the UK's central bank raised rates for the 12th time in a row in a further attempt to tackle soaring inflation. The bank's base rate has been increased by 1/4 of a percentage point from 4.25 to 4.5%. And that's the highest level in 15 years. Jeremy Hunt says the measures will help families, though, in the long run.
Although it's obviously good news the bank is not now predicting a recession this year, it's very challenging for families with mortgages to see interest rates go up. But unless we tackle rising prices, the cost of living crisis will just continue, and that's why it is essential we stick to our plan to halve inflation. And if we do that, we can bring certainty back to family finances.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, agrees the rise will be of concern to many British households.
Today will be a day of great anxiety for many families and businesses around the country who are facing the 12th increase in interest rates in just a matter of months. That means higher mortgage costs already. People have paid £1 billion more in mortgage repayments compared to where they would have been 6 months ago.
Well, in news away from home, the UK has confirmed it is supplying Ukraine with the long-range missiles it requested for its fight against Russia. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says the donation of Storm Shadow missiles gives Ukraine the best chance to defend itself. The decision follows Kyiv's repeated pleas for more weapons from the West. Addressing MPs earlier on today, Ben Wallace also said the United Nations had found Russia had committed war crimes. Now, Pakistan's Supreme Court has ordered the release of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, saying his arrest was illegal. Mr. Khan was arrested on Tuesday by paramilitary officers in riot gear in a courtroom. It sparked widespread protests right across the country, with more than 1,000 people arrested, forcing the government at one point to call in the army to help restore order on the streets. Unlawful information gathering was habitual and widespread, the trial brought by Prince Harry has been told. Several high-profile figures, including Prince Harry, are bringing claims against Mirror Group newspapers with alleged activities covering voicemail interception, securing information through deception and hiring private investigators for unlawful activities. The trial is expected to last 7 weeks. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages have just been delivered. And let's get straight to them. The Independent leads on the Bank of England's latest interest rate rise today, which will affect millions of Brits on variable mortgages and spiking their monthly payments by hundreds of pounds. Very worrying times economically. The Guardian leads with the escalation of Britain's support to Ukraine, as the UK is now the first Western nation to send long-range Storm Shadow missiles to the war-torn country. My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, the former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicole. Now, in a shocking revelation, by the way, that I can guarantee you're not going to see on the BBC, you're not going to see on ITV News Today, you're not going to see it on Sky News Today, because they want to pretend that the scandal is not going on. But a source close to the former SNP treasurer Douglas Chapman has said he did not know about a £110,000 luxury camper van paid for with party cash. The Nationalist battle bus was supposedly earmarked for the Holyrood election campaign in 2021, but was never moved from scheming Sturgeon's mother-in-law's house before it was seized by cops as part of their investigation. Now, Chapman acted as party treasurer for 6 months, only between December 2020 and May 2021 before he quit the post amid claims that he was unable to access key information. Now, coincidentally, this has all emerged that Chapman, it's all emerged at the same time that Chapman, who supported Kate Forbes and not whom's useless to succeed Nicola Sturgeon, is now facing an SNP plot to have him removed as an MP, with a source telling the Times. This is all HQ revenge on Chapman over supporting Forbes and speaking out over the Treasurer stuff. So it appears that the SNP's division and hate is now being directed at members of their own party. Alison Pearson, can we just for a moment remember that this is the governing party of Scotland? They are driving that nation into the ground. This scandal is swirling in such dramatic ways. And do you hear a peep about it in the mainstream broadcast media of this country when they went on about a cake infinitum?
Yeah, I think it's in a way you can't help waiting for the film of this. It's going to be like Local Hero on steroids, isn't it, really? It's absolutely jaw-dropping down, isn't it? I mean, this guy was the treasurer and wasn't told about the £110,000 motorhome, which I love the detail was parked in Nicola Sturgeon's 92-year-old mother's drive for
2 years.
2 years. I mean, absolutely astonishing. And now they are trying to force this man out because, as you say, he supported Kate Forbes, who would have been the same choice. But luckily, I mean, in a way, they went for your friend Mr. Useless. I think what we see, Dan, is that Sturgeon was the sort of Mrs. Ceausescu of Scotland, absolute iron fist, kept the whole thing together, and now that iron fist has been lifted, it's like absolute chaos, isn't it, really? I mean, it's all coming out now. And I've got connections quite high up in Scotland, and they predicted this many months.
I remember.
I shared you a WhatsApp conversation where people...
You had this all.
People were saying, oh, it's a snake's nest, and once it's open, and now it's...
The House of Cards has collapsed.
House of Cards has collapsed, yeah.
But the thing is, Sean, what is so disturbing to me is that there are media organisations in Scotland who knew about these missing funds. You know, this has been a scandal hiding in plain sight. And where has the scrutiny been? Where is the scrutiny now? I mean, this is a scandal that makes Partygate look like tiddlywinks.
But it's like they always say, it's never the cock-up that gets you, it's the cover-up that gets you. And the fact that it was covered up for so long by multiple different parties means that it is now a growing mushroom cloud that simply will not dissipate. And the real issue here, actually, now that the police know and the police are looking at it, it'll have to be investigated. So that's where the pain lies. But for Scotland, the real issue is the absolute mess of Scotland's public finances, and that's on Hamza's watch now. He hasn't displayed any real response to that, and that's the real reason the SNP will fall apart electorally. Yes, their finances are in a mess. Yes, they're having a civil war. Yes, that civil war will grow. But really, the people of Scotland are going to have to start to ask themselves questions about how is Scotland run? And without Nicola Sturgeon to cover everything up by constantly attacking Boris, constantly attacking Westminster, Scottish people asking...
Constantly attacking the English.
Exactly. Scottish people asking different questions that Hamza is unable to answer.
I mean, she was out and out anti-English, and she whipped up anti-English fervour for years. It was completely despicable. But what shocks me about this, Amy, is that you're defending the lack of coverage about this, and you say you can't help but feel all these stories are being spun out by those fearful of Scottish independence, so you are still making excuses for scheming Sturgeon.
Also, we don't really know anything for sure yet, do we? So I guess that's also another reason none of this is being reported. And, hey, they might have an SNP party bus, like a tour bus. They need a tour bus. That can go through the business books. That's fine. But I think that...
The Treasurer didn't know about the £110,000 bus. That's quite
Is it the second bus?
A £110,000 bus.
You can compare...
And the party treasurer quit after 6 months because he didn't have access to the information. And we know, by the way, that Nicola Sturgeon... sorry to interrupt, but Nicola Sturgeon said in that meeting to her comrades, the finances are all good. Don't say a word about the finances.
Look, I'll admit it's not great, and I believe this will lightly tarnish the party. However, If there is an appetite for independence in Scotland, then I think the SNP still stand a chance because they stand for Scottish nationalism.
Well, Alison, and that is actually a fair point, because it's really interesting looking at the polling in Scotland. Clearly, Scots are very fed up with Sturgeon, they're fed up with the SNP scandal. Separatism is less popular than it was, but there's still a huge base of separatists who want to find someone to vote for, and the question is, do they think that Alex Salmond's party, Alba, is actually a viable force, or are they going to hold their nose and keep voting for the SNP?
I think they'll vote Labour. I think we'll see a lot of seats go back to Labour. I have to say, the thing about the camper van is scandals don't really register with the public until you have an object. So you'll remember the Daily Telegraph with the MP's expenses scandal. It's when they had the duck house and the moat.
Never forget it.
A man spending public money cleaning his moat. That really, didn't it? The duck house. And this is the camper van now. So the camper van, you can't get rid of the image of the camper van.
The other thing I'd add as well, Scotland has turned out two effective politicians. One was Nicola Sturgeon, the other one is Alex Salmond. If you give Ruth Davidson, she was a lovely person. If you give Alex Salmond an inch, he'll gain a mile. It's entirely possible that he gets some of those seats and they don't all go to Labour.
Fascinating stuff. Well, look, just a quick legal note. As you know, the allegations surrounding the SNP's finances are denied by all parties involved. The police investigation is ongoing. Sturgeon says she'll cooperate and that she hasn't been asked, and no charges have been brought against anyone. Now, you may remember yesterday I told you about Britain's only short film entry at the Cannes Film Festival this year, a new movie disturbingly titled Killing Boris Johnson, created by lefty director Musa Aldernon Clarke to, quote, immortalise the feeling that myself and so many others experienced during the pandemic. It's been widely slammed, including by Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, who told me yesterday on the show that it was absolutely abhorrent. This is a reminder of the movie.
My memory of this event, as I've said, is going out into the garden for about 25 minutes. I just repeat, I'm deeply sorry for this. This was something that was against the rules. It was a breach of the
Sean Bailey, I have been increasingly angry about this over the past 24 hours. A lot of MPs have been in contact with me and saying, have we forgotten what happened to David Amess? You know, this is the only British entry at Cannes. Would it be acceptable if I decided to make a film because I disagreed with her political position on lockdowns called Killing Jacinda Ardern? I mean, what is this about?
I tell you what this is about. This is the continuation of the left. We know the left is a thing, but what we're doing here is pulling the country apart. What we've been able to do in this country for hundreds of years now is disagree politely. This is leading us down the path of complete polarisation.
But Amy says this is art.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's hardly a manifesto, is it? It's just a film, and also I don't think it's necessarily...
It's literally about how to kill Boris Johnson.
It's a film that looks at the grief inflicted by Partygate.
Yeah,
and I think that
but that's fine. You could do a film about that didn't involve killing Boris Johnson.
People have been doing this for years. Like, there was the assassination of Margaret Thatcher. This type of thing is
totally unacceptable.
No, but this is the point, Amy. It's always aimed at people on the right. Yeah. That's why I use the left term. But the important thing is here, we shouldn't be talking about killing public figures, because eventually people get there.
We totally disagree with Boris Johnson's lockdown policy, but this is deranged, and it would be considered completely unacceptable if this was a politician not on the right.
I think it's also, I think I agree with Sean, I mean, you wouldn't get in France's entry to the Cannes Film Festival would not be, even though he's very unpopular, killing Emmanuel Macron. That they would draw the line at that. And I think it is a left versus right thing. If it was killing Angela Rayner, God forbid, I mean, I don't have no brief for Angela Rayner, but that would be appalling, wouldn't it?
It would be leading every news bulletin in the country.
I thought you were all for freedom of expression.
This isn't about freedom of expression. This is abuse. And if people on the left, somebody should ask Starmer in Parliament tomorrow, what does he think about this? We need people to condemn.
I am totally sick of the hypocrisy that these inhumane things, these racist statements can be made about folk on the right, about white people. It's happening all the time. And it's wrong, you always have to think, would this be acceptable if you were talking about a left-wing politician? And the answer clearly here is no. So it's not acceptable
but also
when you're talking about a
Dan,
right-wing
it's a kind of
politician.
cultural thing as well. I remember when Boris was Prime Minister and he went to some international meeting. There was a reporter from Channel 4 who was asking another world leader, aren't you embarrassed to be in the room with Boris Johnson?
Yeah.
She looked at the reporter as if they were mad. No other country revels in abusing and hating its leaders.
But this is actually unsafe. You know, this is a security concern. It must be really horrifying for Boris Johnson, this film. I've looked at it.
And his family.
Yeah, it's very...
And remember, it puts all politicians at risk. Sadiq Khan, he and I have history, but he gets an awful lot of abuse, and it's all centred around this notion that you can just abuse people in public life.
Which is wrong. Sean Bailey, Amy Nicol, Alison Pearson, thank you so much. But coming up, after Harry and Meghan's assault on the British monarchy, is broadcaster Jenny Murray right that the King is too wary for the pressures of ruling and he should hand over the reins to Prince William? This is a controversial suggestion within just 6 years' time. My superstar panel is split on this. They'll be back to debate it soon. But next, as the Conservative Party launches its search to unseat the world's worst mayor, is this the man who can destroy Sadiq Khan? Samuel Kasamu joins me straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Calvin Mackenzie coming up, but first, failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan's reign at City Hall has seen the once great capital plunged into a lawless hellhole in just 7 short years. Khan has capitulated on everything from knife crime, housing and transport to perhaps his most grave error of all, the hated ultra-low emissions zone scheme to rob motorists of their livelihood. Watch how this incompetent bloke muttered about asthma rates in outer London boroughs when confronted by a tearful and devastated nurse. She's a single mother of 3 who said she couldn't afford to buy a new car to comply with deranged ULEZ regulations.
I have no way at all of purchasing another second-hand car or paying the ULEZ charge. I'm terrified. What on earth do I do? I'm on a low income. I work in healthcare. I'm a single parent with 3 children at university. So I am absolutely reliant on my car for my shift work in the hospital and for getting the kids to university.
Okay, if I could explain why we're doing this, it wasn't an easy decision for
I will make you address her directly after you've given us the
for me to
picture.
do. Sure. More than 2/3 of those who suffer from asthma and other issues live in outer London.
No answer. So one man hoping to oust the mealy-mouthed mayor from power is rising Conservative star Samuel Kasumu, a former special advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is now favourite to become the Tory candidate at the London mayoral elections next May. Samuel has been endorsed by no less than Tory big guns Grant Shapps, Steve Baker and Priti Patel, and has his sights firmly set on putting London back on the map. So, Samuel, it's great to have you here. Firstly, can you just be very, very clear, ULEZ would go completely under a Tory administration led by you?
Yeah, Sadiq Khan has absolutely no mandate. It was not in his manifesto. It's going to cripple some of the most vulnerable people in our society. What he's doing is an act of self-harm, completely inappropriate. And if we are successful in May 2024, that expansion will be reversed.
Good. I think that's really important to know because this is very, very disturbing. Do you feel like this could be your chance to beat Khan? Because it's really fascinating, actually. Sean Bailey, you know, a man I'm sure you know, he's on our Superstar panel tonight. I backed him very strongly during the last campaign, but what the problem was is that lots of the Tory big guns didn't actually believe that it was possible to beat Khan. Now, in the end, Sean came very, very close without much support from the party hierarchy. So do you believe because of ULEZ, you actually can beat Khan? Is he beatable? Because London, you have to admit, is now a Labour city through and through.
Well, look, firstly, I think it's possible, not just because of ULEZ, but also because of how Sean blazed the trail last time. I think that we should ignore the polls and focus on the fact that London is a very unique city and most of the polls are inaccurate when it comes to trying to predict where we end up. But listen, everybody in the party knows that for us to form a really strong foundation, setting us up for the general election, London needs to be one of the things that we win come May 2024.
Indeed. Now, you're a very patriotic guy, aren't you? London, born and bred. I think you spent a few years away in Nigeria, was it, when you were growing up?
Yeah, about 6 months when I was 6, went to Nigeria. But besides that, born in Paddington, raised in Barnet.
London, born and bred. You've had quite a tough upbringing, your faith very important to you. What I like about you is that you're a very patriotic guy, aren't you? And you actually think that London can be helped can help the union in lots of ways. For example, when it comes to the Commonwealth, you think you could, as London Mayor, really help the new king secure the Commonwealth. Now, that's in stark contrast to Sadiq Khan, who, as far as I can tell, wants to trample over our history and pull down lots of statues.
Yeah, I mean, Sadiq spent over £500,000 on this weird panel focused on how we can rename roads and pull down statues, when he should be focused on how we can be a lot more safer as a society and how we can bring in more jobs and opportunity to people in the city. I'm very passionate about the monarchy and the Commonwealth. I think that King Charles is a fantastic leader. And I'm not just saying it because he's king. I'm saying it because I've seen the work he's done through the Prince's Trust, the British Asian Trust, to transform lives. So he means what he says and he says what he does.
I think it's great you're patriotic because actually I think London is really patriotic and I think that's when Khan really misses the point.
Yeah, and also when you look at London, yes, it's very diverse. A lot of people living in London have, I guess, clear links to the Commonwealth, 56 nations, 2.65 billion people across the world. That is a huge market, a huge opportunity to take on things like Russia, Russian aggression, and also the rise of China through the Commonwealth.
What about crime? It's out of control in London. Sadiq Khan has also lost control of the Met. What would you do?
Yeah, my issue with Sadiq is he spends a lot of time blaming the Met when he's responsible for the Met. There's no point point putting out tweets every time it seems like a police officer has done something wrong. Why are you not dealing with the challenges at the root cause? So we need to do a lot more to instill more trust and confidence in the police, but also we need to make sure that the police know that their commander-in-chief, for want of a better term, is on their side and wants them to do as best as they can. And that's exactly what we'll do. We're going to publish a comprehensive crime plan. We call it Time for Action, where we make sure we return to localism, we return to getting more cadets on our volunteering as well, so we have a clearer pipeline of future officers. We've got loads of plans. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to tell you all of them, but we've been thinking about this for a long time.
Can we talk a little bit about your time in Number 10, Downing Street, because you were a special advisor to Boris Johnson on racial equality.
Civil society and communities was my brief.
And you quit in a big row over this Sewell report, which
this is what people tell me all the time.
Britain wasn't institutionally racist. Do you think Britain is institutionally racist?
First, I left before the report was published.
Yes.
I did not see the report before it was published. I read the report, I think, the summer, so many months after I had left. So just to be clear, because this is a narrative that I understand was in papers, but when you're a former special advisor, you can't just go and talk to a newspaper for an extended period of time. Well, at least you're not supposed to, right? Is Britain instantly racist? I don't think so. It's not the way I would describe the nation that I'm from and where I live and where I want to serve and where I have served in public life. I do think there are challenges. Yes, racism still exists. Yes, inequality still exists. But we have to find practical solutions. That's what I've done since I've been a young person, working with people, even like Sean Bailey when I was a young person. He was a huge role model for me. And that's what I'll continue to do, hopefully, as Mayor of London.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because lots of people assume that if you're a young black man growing up in London, you would be aligned to the Labour Party. So when did you realise that you were a Conservative, and did you have to take a lot of flack from your peer group as a result of your political...
It's a really good question. So I grew up in church, so I grew up with socially conservative values that were instilled into me, this idea of having personal responsibility, this idea of the strength of having a family unit, making sure that you're able to be someone that has respect as you walk through public life, and serving was the most important foundation. And I suppose I got involved in the student movement. So West Streeton was the National Union of Students president, Balavi Ribeiro-Addy was Black Students Officer, so a lot of folks who are now in the Labour movement. But I felt like, though I was passionate about the things that they were passionate about, I just couldn't align myself with how they were responding to some of those things that they called injustices at the time. I felt like there must be another way. So I looked at the Tory party, and it was a party that sounded more like me, but perhaps didn't look as much like me as I would have liked. And I looked at that as a really interesting challenge. And so I joined, and part of the things I've been doing since I've been a member of the party is supporting the party and broadening its appeal. And as we look to London, that's exactly some of the sciences that I'm going to have to bring to the table if we're going to win.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, big endorsements so far with Grant Shapps, Steve Baker and Priti Patel, but I know it's a long road, isn't it? It's a big battle, but we're going to be following it closely, so it's really, really good to speak to you. That's Samuel Kasumu, former Special Advisor to Boris Johnson, currently the favourite to take on Sadiq Khan as the Tory London mayoral candidate. But coming up in Uncancelled, the woke ITV crisis deepens as desperate Philip Schofield releases an extraordinary statement in a bid to save his broken relationship with Holly Willoughby. Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie, he's the king of the media, isn't he? He's all over the latest developments on this, and he's going to be bringing them to us soon. But next in the Media Buzz, as broadcaster Jenny Murray gives wary King Charles just 6 years until he hands over the reins to Prince William. Do we need a younger, more vibrant sovereign to deal with the inevitable attacks from the Sussexes? My superstar panel return to debate that. Plus, we're going to have more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Now let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz, and more front pages have just been delivered. Straight to the Daily Mail, which leads with new guidance to prison officers, which orders them not to call criminal convicts as it upsets them, and to refer to ex-offenders as persons with lived experience. And this is why the UK is in trouble, let me tell you. And we were reporting on the rift between Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield earlier in the show, and on the front page of The Sun, Phil has made an extraordinary last-ditch attempt to save their tally partnership. He's told the paper, as I have said before, Holly is my rock. We're the best of friends. As always, she's an incredible support on screen, behind the scenes, and on the phone. The last few weeks haven't been easy for either of us. Well, we're going to have more on this developing story, woke ITV in crisis, with Calvin McKenzie in just a few moments' time. But first, let me bring in my superstar panel. Top Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, the former Conservative London mayoral candidate, top Tory Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicole. Now, Harry and Meghan's vicious 3-year assault on the royal family has left the British monarchy fighting for its very existence, especially in the Commonwealth. The damage the Sussexes have caused, particularly among young generations, will take decades to repair, and that huge challenge currently falls on the shoulders of our new king. But with 74-year-old Charles harbouring a reputation for wokery and political meddling, would a younger sovereign in Prince William be the wiser bet for securing the monarchy's future? Well, radio legend Jenny Murray, she thinks so. She's predicted in the Daily Mail that the wary king will have just 6 years before handing over to his son. She wrote, I wish him well, but urge them to think of early retirement as an option, maybe plan to work hard up to the age of 80, hand over to a 46-year-old Prince William and enjoy time together in the marriage they struggled so long to achieve and which has clearly made them so happy. And Alison Pearson, you're a big royalist, but fascinatingly, you're with Jenny Murray on this.
Yes, I am, Dan. I think that no one would grudge Charles his moment at the coronation. You know, I mean, he was the longest waiting Prince of Wales. 70 years he was heir to the throne. I think it was right that, you know, that he should become monarch and have his turn in the spotlight. But I think honestly, if we're brutally honest, Anne, I think William and Kate would be such great box office for the monarchy.
And their young family, too.
Young family. I think Jenny's right. I think if they get to 80, Queen Camilla is going to be 76 in July. Going to be, you know, very tired. She put her back out last week. Someone, a close person, told me she got through that coronation.
That heavy crowd.
Is that from balancing the crowd?
Heavy crowd. I mean, you know, they were tottering down the aisle. I mean, you know, they did fantastically well.
But they looked tired.
And they looked tired. They are quite elderly. I think 6 years. I think getting to 80. I know there's all this issue about, you know, you don't abdicate. The Queen, it was different. The Queen became Princess Elizabeth became Queen. She was 27 years old. It was such a compelling story. People grew up with her. They grew old with her. I think if
it was different, we would stick with the Queen until the end. And look, Sean, we have survived abdication before, and actually, thank God the Duke of Windsor abdicated, given he was a Nazi sympathiser. But you actually think Alison's highly irresponsible to suggest such a thing?
Your argument is compelling, but I disagree, and I'll tell you why. Being king is about being steady. It's about being the head of our state. It's about being fatherly in this sense, and I think William is too young. He does not have the life experience to be the head of state for an entire nation of 70+ million people.
Come of age, actually,
I don't believe he has, and I'll tell you why.
Speech.
I tell you why. One speech does not a king make, and I tell you why, because he hasn't sat in the reserve seat long enough. If Charles has any quality, it's because he sat still for a long time and watched his mother knock it out of the park. William needs to do the same. Patience is an important part of being
The problem is it's so hard to follow the goat. And I actually think... Look, the problem I've got, Amy, is that actually it's Harry and Meghan who've caused this issue. Because the reason... I genuinely believe that. No, because... The monarchy is in trouble outside of the UK. So I actually think things have been good here, and the coronation was brilliant for bringing the country together, despite what ITV and that woman from Bridgerton might say. But the big issue is that Harry and Meghan have caused so much damage around the Commonwealth, and I believe it needs a young, vibrant king and queen to be able to tackle some of those issues.
I think that's a heavy accusation.
I mean it.
Okay.
I utterly mean it,
and I can back it up. Is there anything you don't blame them for?
Yes.
The weather. But honestly...
Crime rates in London.
They're responsible for that.
I totally agree with Sean on this one. And I think King Charles is actually proving to do a wonderful job of his little checks and balances on our government. And I think
you just like him because he's woke.
he's really speaking for the people, like... Rwanda is appalling. Yes, King Charles.
He's speaking for the lefties.
We'll go meet Ursula von der Leyen and be a wonderful soft power when it comes to
the vast majority
EU.
of the country agree with the Rwanda policy. Do you know that? The vast majority of the country want to stop the boats. Do you know that?
They're stopping the boats, and then there's Rwanda. They're very
the problem, Amy, with this is we get into a cycle of very old monarchs, OK?
Yeah.
So if Charles, his mother died aged 96, if Charles lives to 96, then you've got an elderly king coming in, then you've got Prince George being an elderly...
I think that's a good thing.
No.
Look at hold on. The most successful monarchy in the world really is the Pope. And they make a point of selecting older people who are stately. The most powerful people in the world are people who don't need to get the next big job, who are not in it for anything else. And elderly people are better at that.
To the Pope and the glamour of the British monarch.
No.
But the truth,
I disagree.
The truth is that really people are growing increasingly weary of not King Charles, of the monarchy as a whole.
No, they haven't. Don't be ridiculous.
Well, you're talking about 20% of the population, actually, that at the moment would rather have...
So 80% of the population.
Can I just say, Amy, as a politician, I can tell you now, I would take that. 80%, I'd take that all day long.
Only 14%.
I want to cross stateside now, though, because Donald Trump continued his US re-election campaign last night. I have to be honest with you, I stayed up for this. I had my popcorn out. He made a big return to the lefty news network CNN in a town hall event with the rising media star Caitlin Collins. Watch.
A Manhattan jury found that you sexually abused the writer E. Jean Carroll and defamed her. You've denied this. But what do you say to voters who say it disqualifies you from being president?
Well, there aren't too many of them because my poll numbers just came out. They went up. Okay.
What is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Drill, baby, drill.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
You
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
And I laughed, and I laughed, and I absolutely loved it. And to all of the people saying we don't want 4 more years of this, yes, we do. Because let me give you the contrast. Joe Biden, who last night was on stage cracking a totally inappropriate joke about thin walls at his parents' house before once again getting lost on stage.
There's 4 kids and a grandpa living with us. I look back on and wonder how thin those walls were for my mom and dad, but at any rate.
Every time. Trump or Biden for 2024. Pick your fighter, folks. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Alison Pearson, do stand by, because coming up, as the Archbishop of Woke wades into the elected government's migrant policy and launches his own crusade against the will of the British people, do Justin Welby's comments only serve the people smugglers? We'll debate that as we crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, after refusing to condemn Adjoa Ando's white balcony coronation slur despite record complaints, Woke ITV has tonight been hit by another crisis as desperate Philip Schofield releases an extraordinary statement in a bid to save his broken relationship with Holly Willoughby. Find out what he said and whether the This Morning duo have any future together when Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie joins me. He's the king of the media, uncancelled, in just 2 minutes' time.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And the race-baiting ITV coverage of this weekend's spectacular coronation has drawn condemnation across the nation, with the channel refusing to apologise for Bridgerton actress Adjoa Ando's disgraceful comments on Saturday, despite the moment drawing a record number of complaints from furious viewers.
That we've gone from the rich diversity of the Abbey to a terribly white balcony. I'm very struck by that.
After Dr. Scholler referred to the coronation as pale, stale and predominantly male on Tuesday's Good Morning Britain, and former Loose Women star Carol McGiffin told this show she had been gagged by ITV on Tuesday night, Channel is now facing a fresh crisis as I've revealed in an exclusive for Mail Online today that this morning's golden couple, Holly and Phil, have been embroiled in a backstage fallout after a succession of scandals threatened to ruin Phil's reputation, leading Holly to seriously consider splitting from her on-screen partner of 14 years. I mean, in fact, she wants to. Well, in the last hour, Emotional Schofield has been forced to respond to the revelations with an extraordinary and desperate statement as he fights to save his broken relationship with Holly. He told The Sun, "As I have said before, Holly is my rock. We're the best of friends. As always, she is an incredible support on screen, behind the scenes and on the phone. Holly has always been there for me through thick and thin." But he adds, the last few weeks haven't been easy for either of us. Well, I'm delighted to be joined tonight by former editor of The Sun and legend of Fleet Street, king of the media, Calvin Mackenzie. So look, Calvin, this is a big issue for ITV because this morning is their big show. Their ratings are cratering, by the way, in daytime since the loss of big anti-woke figures like Jeremy Kyle and Piers Morgan. And they've got a situation where one of their big stars doesn't want to work with the other one, and now the other one, Philip, is basically trying to twist her arm publicly. I mean, this is an extraordinary situation.
Well, it's an important show for ITV. It gets, even although they're much lower the ratings, as they are in all network television, because smaller stations like your own and the online world are snipping away all the time. But look, let's be honest about them. They've had 14 years together. Most double acts don't survive. And this has been a successful one. What's happened now, I think, is that the power has shifted between Holly, who remains young, vibrant, and hugely attractive, and Philip Schofield, who is now in his 60s, slightly curmudgeonly, has been involved in a few little scandals. I mean, not least of which in the one involving his brother recently. It wasn't his fault, but of course he was told by his brother that he was involved in some sexual abuse of a disgraceful kind, and there's all kinds of things. Apparently, Holly objects. I read your piece. Holly objects to the fact that he overspeaks to her. Philip had a power, I think you knew about that, had a power within this morning which was massive. That power is now ebbed away, and now he's fighting to stay in what is a pretty good and hugely paid job. So I don't feel sorry. I don't feel sorry for him at all. He's had a bloody good run, and in television to last 14 minutes is fantastic. 14 years is incredible.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You are right. Holly is, I think, getting sick of the fact that Philip tries to dominate her. So I'll play you a couple of moments and get you to react. So this is one example of Holly being fed up of the way that Philip interrupts her.
It took me probably a year, 18 months before I was actually glad that I'd survived.
Wow, wow, gosh. And even at 43% of your body, 43% of...
And Ruth Langsford, brilliant broadcaster, the wife of our great GBNews presenter Eamon Holmes, who presents our breakfast show now, she actually made a formal complaint to ITV bosses after this moment on screen.
And Emmerdale Twisted teacher Maya, that's actress Louisa Klein, will be here talking about...
Guys, we're going to have to jump in there and stop you, I'm afraid, because we're a bit tight for time at this end. So thank you, Ruth, and we'll catch you guys a little bit later. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So the problem is, Calvin, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest about this. Philip Schofield is the most loathsome bloke on television. He has no allies behind the scenes at ITV. He's hated by people like Amanda Holden and Fern Britton because he's treated them so badly over the years.
Right. But look, this is all blown up. It's fine to have your rows behind the scenes. Directly the public become embroiled in it, then they feel uncomfortable. They like the idea that they were a couple. It's clearly they're not a couple. They're heading to the divorce courts. And at that point, ITV have to do something about it, because otherwise they will have no show and no audience. And when they have no audience, then the advertising dollars disappear. And ITV's announcement today of their own position led to their stock price collapsing for the umpteenth time over the last year, and their ad revenues are way down and their audiences are down. They have to do something about it. But unfortunately, the current boss of ITV, who's probably heading for the door very shortly, and thank God for that, right, has no real sense of how to run these kinds of rows.
No, she's a utopian. She's a woke-topian. Carolyn McCall used to run The Guardian. She's the one responsible for getting rid of Piers Morgan. She's the one responsible for getting rid of Jeremy Kyle. That's why the audience is cratering in daytime. My prediction, though, Calvin, and I'm very close to this story, is that the bosses will back Holly Willoughby, because I think they don't want to risk losing her to the BBC, who want her, or to the big streaming services who want her. So I think in the end it's going to be sling your hook, Philip Schofield. And believe me, there'll be celebrations within ITV the day that happens.
Well, you'll probably be leading them if I take your off-screen comments.
I'm no fan of him. I'm no fan of him. And look, I'll be very honest about it. I used to work with the bloke for 10 years on ITV Daytime, and he tried to get me sacked numerous times, actually. He's not a pleasant character, and he's ruled the roost for a very long time. But, Calvin, that's not behind my reporting. I'm just giving you full disclosure on this.
Well, it's nice to know that Philip hasn't got any friends in GB News either. So he unites two networks. There we go.
ITV staying silent on this. Isn't it terrible? They haven't responded, by the way. Isn't it terrible, by the way, Calvin, that they haven't even apologised for that revoltingly racist comment on the balcony by that Bridgerton woman?
But it's very odd, isn't it? Imagine if it were the other way round, that a white person had said,
I know,
that it was terribly mixed in Westminster Abbey, wasn't it? Right? Supposing they said that it was terribly diverse. What would have happened then? Somebody, i.e. Bradbury or co, would have come forward and said, you can't say that. Or if they come out of a break, if they'd gone to a break, come back out again and said, I tell you what, we'd like to apologise for that. It wasn't terribly diverse. We love a diverse. What is incredible is that a community or representatives of community are allowed to say anything without any comeback at all. If anybody from the white community says anything, oh my God, they're either cancelled or there's an apology or they're forced off air in some way.
Well, you're finished. You're finished if you work on ITV. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. They are the ultimate example of go woke, go broke. And my advice is to just switch off ITV. It's a disgustingly woke company now that doesn't believe in freedom of speech. Calvin McKenzie, we will speak on Monday. But now it's time to reveal tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel return. Alison Pearson, who's your nominee for tonight's GB?
Surprisingly, perhaps, Liz Truss, our former Prime Minister, Liz of the 49 Days, is giving a speech in Taiwan showing solidarity with Taiwan in the face of increasingly aggressive behaviour from China. Compare and contrast with President Macron oiling up the backside of Chinese tyrants. Well done, Liz, for standing up for democracy and freedom.
I think this is so brave. Sean Bailey, your nominee.
My nominee is Ben Francis, founder of Gymshark, a British entrepreneur, homegrown success, started his business as a pizza delivery when he was getting it off the ground, and he's been given an MBE, and he really deserves it. Great story of young British success.
Yeah, what an incredible guy. Incredible guy. Amy Nicole, your nominee.
Mine is Rachel Reeves for her pitch-perfect heckle at PMQs about
I think we can take a look at this.
Suspect.
I'm sure the Prime Minister must finally have met some working people in recent weeks.
Oh, so you like that, Amy? It tickled you,
I
did
did
it?
like that. It did tickle me a little bit.
It's nice to see Rachel not looking quite so robotic for one moment.
Exactly.
But I'm going to go with Liz Truss and Alison Pearson because, you know what, lots of people in the media, including Andrew Marr, are just giving a platform at the moment to the Chinese Communist Party because they just want to get at Liz Truss. It's so wrong. Alison Pearson, your Union Jackass nominee.
It is the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, standing up, the unelected cleric, standing up in the House of Lords, saying that the illegal migration bill is morally unacceptable, in which case 40% of the British people are morally unacceptable because they support that bill.
Sean Bailey, your nominee.
Mine is Steve Reed. He was the orchestrator of those terrible attack ads on Rishi Sunak about letting criminals off, when it turns out he intervened to let a violent criminal off. The hypocrisy is amazing. But more importantly than that, he's setting us at each other's throats. Let's have some good public debate.
And Amy Nicole, your Union Jackass nominee.
Mine's honorary. It's Donald Trump. He gave me lots and lots of litany of lies to choose from, but I decided to go for the fact that he still denies the claims of this sexual assault, despite being found liable by a
civil
jury
court.
in a court of law.
In a civil court, has totally different rules. And by the way, if you're in New York, you've got a jury of Democrats, so it's very political process.
On.
Just being honest about how it works. Look into it, Amy. Who am I going to go with here? Oh, it's got to be the double for Alison Pearson tonight, doesn't it? Of course, it's the Archbishop of Woke, Justin Welby. Thank you so much to my superstar panel, Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicole. Fabulous stuff. Thank you for your company all week. We've had a good one. I'm back on Monday from 9 p.m. I'll let you know how it goes at the Conservative Democratic Organisation Conference in Bournemouth on Saturday. If you go in, I'll see you there. Next up, though, it's Headliners. Good night.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely
Right.
stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News. In a moment, headliners. But first, let's bring you up to date with the latest news headlines. And our top story tonight, the Chancellor says the Bank of England's latest interest rate rise will prove challenging for families with mortgages. His comments come after the UK's central bank raised rates for the 12th time in a row in a further attempt to tackle soaring inflation. The bank's base rate has increased by 1/4 percentage point, from 4.25 to 4.5%. That's the highest level in 15 years. Jeremy Hunt says the measures will help families, though, in the long run.
Although it's obviously good news the bank is not now predicting a recession this year, it's very challenging for families with mortgages to see interest rates go up. But unless we tackle rising prices,